They found 17 browser tabs you forgot to close at 4 a.m. And the surveillance team called an emergency meeting. Not because you're dangerous, but because you've become something they can't profile anymore. You know what's wild? There's someone whose entire job was to watch you. Not just your internet history, your patterns, your timing, your evolution. Agent Rodriguez. 23 years in federal surveillance. Profiled cartel kingpins, tracked international hackers, monitored domestic terrorists. He'd seen it all. Minds twisted by greed, warped by ideology, consumed by rage. He understood those. He could predict those. He knew how broken people move. But you? You broke his entire framework. 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, he submitted his resignation. His supervisor found him staring at his monitors, 7 screens glowing in the dark, all of them streaming your digital footprint. The report he filed was 8 pages, but the summary was 5 words. Subject's mind cannot be contained. Let that sink in for a second. A man trained to observe the darkest corners of human psychology couldn't handle watching yours anymore. Not because you became a monster. Because you became something the system has no box for. See, here's what happened. Here's what made a federal agent with 2 decades of experience tap out like he'd seen a ghost. You stopped being predictable. You stopped fitting the algorithm they use to understand human behavior. Desperate people search for quick fixes. Broken people search for escapes. Broken people search for targets. Your search history stopped making sense about 6 months ago. It wasn't porn, wasn't gambling, wasn't conspiracy theories or shopping binges or any of the usual digital self-medication. It was learning, strategic, surgical learning, cognitive behavioral psychology at 2 a.m., negotiation tactics at dawn, Stoic philosophy mixed with game theory mixed with neuroscience. You were reverse engineering the human operating system, and he watched it happen in real time. The notes in his file read like a psychological thriller. Month 1. Subject shows typical post-trauma patterns. Increased social media usage, validation-seeking behavior, emotional volatility. Standard stuff. Breakup, betrayal, job loss, whatever shattered you. They've seen it a million times. They know how that story ends. Spiral, recover, repeat. But then month 2 hit different. Subject's online activity shifted. Decreased social engagement. Increased educational consumption. Search patterns suggest deliberate personality reconstruction. He started using words like concerning in his reports. Not because you were planning anything illegal, because you were planning something they couldn't predict. You stopped reacting. That's what unnerved him first. Someone would subtweet you, and the old you would have spent 3 hours crafting the perfect comeback, checking their profile 17 times, losing sleep over someone who doesn't pay your bills. The new you didn't even screenshot it. You just kept building, kept learning, kept moving. He noted the exact moment. Subject viewed provocation at 11:34 p.m. Spent 4 seconds on content, returned to educational material. No emotional spike detected in subsequent activity. You know what that meant to him? It meant you'd stopped feeding the machine. You'd stopped being a predictable little dopamine puppet dancing when someone pulled your strings. That's when his concern graduated to something else. Fear? Maybe. Fascination? Definitely. Because you weren't numbing the pain, you were weaponizing it. You were studying manipulation while your manipulators thought you were crying. You were learning influence while they thought you were broken. You were becoming dangerous while they were busy celebrating your downfall. Month 3, his reports got weird. Subject has developed pattern recognition capabilities beyond baseline population average. appears to identify social engineering attempts before engagement. Translation. You started seeing the game, not just in hindsight, not just when someone explained it to you, in real time, mid-conversation. You'd be texting someone and you could feel the manipulation before it landed. The love bombing, the guilt trip, the gaslighting. All of it became visible like you'd unlocked some kind of psychological X-ray vision. Your ex texted you at 1 a.m., that classic I miss you nonsense, the bait they throw when they're bored, or their new situation isn't working out. Old, you would have written a paragraph, deleted it, written another, stayed up till dawn, wondering if you should respond. New you, read receipt off. 3 seconds of acknowledgement, back to sleep. He watched that interaction and wrote, "Subject demonstrates complete emotional immunity to previously effective manipulation tactics." Concerning. Concerning. That word kept appearing. You weren't concerning because you were becoming a bad person. You were concerning because you were becoming a free one. See, the system, whether it's government surveillance, social media algorithms, or just the basic power structures people use to control each other, it all runs on predictability. They need you to react. They need you to engage. They need you to care what they think, fear what they'll do, crave what they're withholding. The moment you stop playing that game, the moment you become genuinely indifferent to the puppet strings, you become a glitch in their matrix. And you glitched hard. Month 4. Agent Rodriguez started documenting things that had nothing to do with national security. He was profiling you like you were a phenomenon, not a person. Subject no longer participates in comparative social behavior. No status updates, no achievement broadcasting, no validation-seeking indicators. Yet productivity markers suggest significant life advancement occurring outside digital footprint. You were leveling up in silence. While everyone else was posting their gym selfies, you were actually transforming your body. While they were tweeting about their goals, you were achieving yours. While they were performing growth, you were embodying it. And it made you invisible to the systems designed to track human behavior through digital breadcrumbs. You became a ghost, not because you were hiding, because you stopped needing to be seen. The surveillance notes show his growing frustration. He couldn't figure you out anymore, couldn't predict your next move, couldn't categorize your transformation. You weren't following any known pattern of human recovery or development. You were writing a new one. Subjects' communication patterns indicate strategic withdrawal from toxic systems while maintaining productive professional relationships. Demonstrates ability to operate within social structures without psychological attachment to them. He wrote that like it was an anomaly, like you'd developed a superpower. And maybe you had. The superpower of not giving a fuck about things that don't serve you while still functioning at a high level in the world. That's the thing they never see coming. They think detachment means destruction. They think not caring means not trying. They think emotional independence means social isolation. They can't comprehend that you've just evolved past needing their approval to feel valid, their attention to feel worthy, their presence to feel whole. Month 5, the notes got personal. Agent admits difficulty maintaining professional objectivity. Subject's psychological evolution mirrors patterns of extreme self-actualization, typically only observed in individuals who've undergone intensive therapy or spiritual transformation. No external intervention detected. Subject appears to have achieved this independently through systematic self-education and behavioral modification. He was watching you become the person you were supposed to be. And it was messing with his head because nobody told you how. No guru, no program, no 12-step system. Just you, your pain, and the decision to turn suffering into strategy. Your browser history told a story. 3 a.m. searches for how to stop caring what people think became cognitive distortions in interpersonal relationships, became game theory in social dynamics, became strategic positioning in competitive environments. You weren't healing, you were upgrading. You weren't recovering, you were evolving. And somewhere in month 6, he started noticing something that really broke him. The people who hurt you were breaking down. Your ex, the one who left you for someone better, started liking your old posts. The friend who ghosted you when you needed them most suddenly remembered your birthday. The boss who overlooked you got real quiet when your name came up. The haters who celebrated your fall stopped posting altogether. Agent Rodriguez documented it all. Subjects connected to primary target show increased signs of psychological distress inversely proportional to target's improvement. Group chat activity among former associates shows obsessive discussion of target's whereabouts, activities, and perceived success. Target demonstrates zero reciprocal interest. They were melting down, and you didn't even notice because you weren't checking anymore. That's what killed them. Not that you moved on, that you moved UP. So far up that looking back didn't even occur to you. He watched your ex spiral through 5 dating apps, drunk text you twice, show up at places they knew you used to go. He watched your former friends analyze your every social media move in their group chat, trying to decode whether you were really happy or just pretending. You watched people who wrote you off start asking mutual friends about you, casual at first, then desperate. And you were learning Portuguese, starting a business, reading philosophy, completely unaware that you'd become the main character in everyone else's spiral story. The surveillance files show their patterns. Bargaining. Maybe we were too harsh. Denial. They're probably faking it. Anger. Who do they think they are? Depression. We really messed up. Obsession. Why won't they respond? And you were just living, thriving, glowing, not for them, despite them, without them. That's what Agent Rodriguez couldn't handle. The poetic justice of it, the cosmic irony. He'd spent his career watching bad people do bad things and usually get away with it. He'd seen evil win more times than he could count. But you were his first front row seat to watching someone become so genuinely okay that their mere existence became torture for everyone who tried to break them. Subject has achieved what can only be described as psychological sovereignty, he wrote in week 23. Traditional monitoring protocols ineffective. Subject operates outside conventional frameworks of social control. Displays no vulnerability to manipulation, no addiction to validation, no dependence on external approval. You weren't just healed, you were immunized. You'd caught every virus they tried to infect you with. Jealousy, insecurity, FOMO, codependency. And your system built antibodies. Now you were immune, untouchable, operating on a frequency they couldn't reach anymore. Month 7 is when things got really interesting. Your former circle started trying to reconnect. Casual texts. Hey, long time. Like they didn't ghost you when you were drowning. Like they didn't celebrate when you fell. Like they didn't write you off as a lost cause. Agent Rodriguez documented every attempt, every message, every pathetic little breadcrumb they threw your way, hoping you'd bite. You didn't bite. You didn't even acknowledge the bait was there. Subject demonstrates complete disinterest in rekindling relationships with individuals who previously caused psychological harm. No anger detected. No vindictiveness observed. Simply indifference. That word, indifference, appeared 47 times in his final reports. He was obsessed with your lack of obsession. Fascinated by your freedom, Because here's what he realized, what made him quit. You weren't playing anymore. You weren't in the game they were all still trapped in. The game of ego, status, revenge, proving people wrong. You'd transcended it. Not by winning, by realizing it was never worth playing in the first place. Your ex, the one who upgraded from you. Agent Rodriguez watched them watch you. Literally. The surveillance caught them checking your profiles from burner accounts, asking about you driving past your place. Their new relationship was imploding, and you were the ghost haunting it. Not because you were trying, because they couldn't stop comparing. Every fight they had, your name came up. Every moment of doubt, they wondered if they made a mistake. You became the standard they'd never reach again, and you didn't have to do a single thing to earn that position. You just had to become yourself. Your real self. The one that was always there under the layers of people-pleasing and self-betrayal and shrinking to make others comfortable. The friend group that iced you out. Their group chat was a psychological disaster zone. Agent Rodriguez had access to it. Don't ask how surveillance works. That's not the point. And he watched it evolve from celebration to confusion to full-blown crisis. First, they joked about you. Then they wondered about you. Then they worried about you. Then they worried about you. Then they worried about you. Then they missed you. Then they needed you, and you didn't need them at all. I've never seen anything like this, he wrote in a note that wasn't even for the file, just for himself. The target isn't seeking revenge, isn't gloating, isn't even aware they're winning. That's what makes it so devastating. They've genuinely moved on, and everyone who wronged them is stuck in the past, obsessing over someone who's forgotten they exist. Month 8, your professional life popped off. That project you'd been working on in silence while everyone thought you were wasting time, it launched. It succeeded. It put you on a trajectory that left your doubters speechless. Agent Rodriguez watched your former boss find out through LinkedIn. Watched the color drain from his face in the coffee shop security camera feed. Watched him realize that overlooking you was the biggest mistake of his career. You didn't send a told you so message. Didn't make a petty post. Didn't do anything except continue building. That silence was louder than any comeback could ever be. See, that's the thing about real growth. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't perform. It just is. And when you embody it authentically, when you're genuinely focused on your own evolution instead of other people's perception, you become undeniable. Not because you're trying to prove anything, because there's nothing left to prove. Agent Rodriguez's final report, the one that came with his resignation, was the most honest document he'd ever filed. I entered federal surveillance to protect society from dangerous individuals. I'm leaving because I've realized the most dangerous thing a person can do is become completely free. Free from needing approval. Free from fearing rejection. Free from the addiction to validation. Free from the cage of other people's opinions. Free from the prison of past pain. Free from the weight of grudges. Free from the game entirely. They can't control someone who doesn't want anything from them, he wrote. Can't manipulate someone who sees the manipulation. Can't break someone who's already rebuilt themselves stronger. Can't haunt someone who's genuinely at peace. I've watched this individual transform from a standard emotional profile into something I don't have language for. Not a sociopath. They still show empathy and connection. Not a narcissist. They show no need for external validation. They've simply transcended the normal human need to be understood by people who don't matter. That last line stuck with him. People who don't matter. Not because they're bad people, because they're not your people. Because their opinion of you has no impact on your reality. Because their approval or disapproval is just noise in a frequency you've tuned out. You know what scared him most. The searches in week 34. Not dark web stuff. Not anything illegal or even edgy. Just how to help others break free from toxic patterns. You weren't content being free yourself. You were learning how to show others the way out. That's when he knew he had to quit. Because he'd seen what you became when you freed yourself. And he couldn't imagine a world where that knowledge spread. Where more people realized they could just opt out. Stop playing. Stop caring. Stop shrinking. Stop performing. Stop needing permission to exist fully. The system he worked for. The surveillance state, the control mechanisms, the entire apparatus of keeping people predictable and manageable. It all depended on people staying trapped. Trapped in insecurity, trapped in comparison, trapped in the need for validation, trapped in fear of judgment, trapped in patterns that keep them small and struggling and desperate. You escaped. And worse, you did it so quietly, so completely, that you became evidence that escape was possible, that the cage was always unlocked, that freedom wasn't something you earned through suffering or bought through success. It was something you claimed through awareness. Further observation may compromise agent mental stability, he wrote. Translation: watching you be this free was making him question everything, his career, his choices, his own cage. You were a mirror reflecting his own lack of freedom, and he couldn't handle it, so he quit. Walked away from a 23-year career because monitoring your evolution was more dangerous to his worldview than watching actual criminals. Because you committed the ultimate crime in a system built on control. You stopped being controllable. And here's the beautiful, poetic, absolutely devastating part. You have no idea. You didn't plan this, didn't strategize it, didn't weaponize your growth to hurt anyone. You just grew, healed, evolved, became. And in doing so, you accidentally destroyed everyone who tried to diminish you without lifting a finger in their direction. Your ex can't move on because everyone pales in comparison to the person you've become. Your former friends can't fill the hole you left because you were the real one and they were the performance. Your doubters can't sleep because your success is the alarm they can't snooze. Your haters can't hate effectively because you're not engaging with the negativity anymore. You broke their algorithms, the social ones, the emotional ones, the predictive ones. You stopped responding to the stimuli they kept sending. Stopped dancing to their music, stopped playing your assigned role in their narrative. And the wildest part? You did it by accident. You weren't trying to make them obsessed, you were trying to heal. Weren't trying to make them regret, you were trying to grow. Weren't trying to win, you were trying to find peace. But your genuine disinterest became the most powerful revenge that was never revenge at all. Agent Rodriguez's last day, he watched you. One more time. His final surveillance shift. You were at a coffee shop, reading a book, completely present in the moment. Someone walked past, someone from your past, someone who'd hurt you. They hesitated, clearly debating whether to approach. You looked up, made brief eye contact, gave a polite nod of acknowledgement. Not warm, not cold, just neutral, and returned to your book. He watched that person walk away shattered. Not because you were rude, because you were indifferent, because you'd moved so far beyond that chapter that you couldn't even fake interest in reopening it. Your peace was their punishment, and you weren't even trying to punish them. Subject's mind cannot be contained, he wrote one final time. Not because of malicious intent, because they've learned to contain themselves, their energy, their attention, their emotional investment. They've become a closed system, self-sustaining, requiring no external input to maintain stability. Traditional monitoring relies on identifying vulnerabilities. Subject has eliminated all access points. You became a fortress, not built from walls and weapons, built from boundaries and self-knowledge. Not keeping people out through aggression, keeping them out through standards. Not isolated, integrated. Not bitter, better. Not broken, unbreakable. That's what they can't handle. That's what breaks their brains. They need you to need them. Need you to hurt. Need you to care. Need you to react. Need you to prove something. Need you to defend yourself. Need you to engage with their chaos. And you just don't. You're busy. Building empires while they're building conspiracy theories about your glow-up. Creating art while they're creating group chats to analyze your every move. Living life while they're losing sleep over the fact that you're thriving without them. The FBI agent monitoring you quit because he realized something terrifying. You're not dangerous to society. You're dangerous to systems of control. You're not a threat to people. You're a threat to the idea that people need to stay small, stay broken, stay trapped in cycles of seeking approval from those who don't deserve access to their energy. You're living proof that you can be discarded, disrespected, dismissed, and still rise. That betrayal doesn't have to breed bitterness. That pain can be transformed into power. That the people who wrote you off were writing the biggest mistake of their lives. That the lowest point in your story was just the foundation for your comeback. And you're doing it without the dramatic speeches, without the revenge plots, without the social media manifestos. You're just being. Fully, authentically, unapologetically being. And that quiet confidence, that genuine peace, that unshakable self-possession, it's a frequency that scrambles their sensors. They trained him to identify threats, to spot danger, to recognize patterns of destructive behavior. But you weren't any of those things. You were just someone who'd learned to be okay without needing the world to validate it. Someone who'd figured out that the ultimate freedom isn't rebellion, it's indifference to the systems that tried to define you. So he quit. Because watching you was like watching someone walk through walls that everyone else believed were solid. You made the impossible look effortless, and it broke something in his understanding of how humans are supposed to work. But here's what he'll never tell you. What he wrote in a journal he keeps locked in his desk. I spent 23 years watching criminals. Murderers, thieves, terrorists, traffickers. I understood them all. But in 6 months of watching Subject X, I learned something that terrified me more than any case in my career. Most people are one decision away from complete freedom, and they'll spend their entire lives never making it. Subject X made it. And now they're more than free. They're impossible to imprison again. You're the glitch they can't fix, the variable they can't control, the outcome they can't predict, the person they can't reduce to data points and behavioral patterns. And somewhere out there, Agent Rodriguez is lying awake at 3:47 a.m., the same time he quit, wondering if he could learn what you learned, if he could break free from his own cage, if he could stop being the watcher and become the person worth watching transform. But he probably won't, because freedom requires something most people aren't willing to give: the courage to disappoint everyone who needs you to stay small, the strength to walk away from everyone who only loved you when you were broken, the wisdom to value your peace more than their presence, the audacity to believe you deserve better than the crumbs they called a feast. You gave all of that. You paid the price. You did the work. You made the leap. And now you're on the other side of something most people will never escape. The need to be needed by people who never needed you until you didn't need them. That's the thing that made him quit. Not danger, not crime, not threat, just freedom. Pure, unfiltered, undeniable freedom. The kind that can't be monitored because it doesn't ask permission. Can't be tracked because it doesn't follow predictable patterns. Can't be contained because it was never really trapped. Just convinced it was. You unconvinced yourself. Unplugged from the matrix. Woke up from the dream they sold you about needing to prove your worth to people who can't even recognize value. And in doing so, you became something more dangerous than any criminal he ever tracked. You became impossible to control. And in a world built on control, that makes you a revolutionary who never intended to start a revolution. So yeah, the FBI agent monitoring you quit. Not because you're bad, because you're free. And freedom, real freedom. The kind that radiates from your core and can't be faked or performed or proven, that's the most dangerous thing in a world that profits from your prison. They can't watch someone who's learned to watch themselves with compassion instead of criticism. Can't control someone who's mastered self-control. Can't break someone who's already been broken and rebuilt themselves with titanium instead of the glass everyone else uses. Can't haunt someone who's made peace with their ghosts. Can't diminish someone who's found their own light and stopped borrowing it from others. You didn't break out. You evolved beyond the need for the prison they didn't even tell you existed. And that right there, that's why he had to quit. Because his entire career was built on the assumption that people need to be watched, controlled, contained. And you proved that the scariest people aren't the ones breaking laws. They're the ones breaking chains.